and welcome to yet another edition of Lagos Transportation Agenda. This is a program in which we showcase and highlight the activities, projects and projections of the Lagos State government as far as transportation is concerned. We also engage with influential and knowledgeable stakeholders in the sector. We examine current and emerging trends as well as topical issues in transportation in Lagos, in Nigeria and globally. My name is Austin Ian. The quest to develop an integrated transportation ecosystem in Lagos State has been the preoccupation of successive administration over the years. In the past 3 years, during the life of this present administration, led by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, this preoccupation has led to massive investment in road, in rail and water transportation. Central to this quest is the role of LAMATA, the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, whose founding vision has been to provide a world-class, sustainable, integrated transport system that satisfies stakeholders and drives the growth of Lagos. Today on the show, we are looking at the establishment and maintenance of integrated transport arteries with a spotlight on bus terminals, shelters, and BRT stations. With me on the show to discuss the issue of integrated transport arteries with a spotlight on bus terminals, shelters, and BRT stations is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Lagos Area Metropolitan Transport Authority, Engineer Mrs. Abimbola Akinajo. Welcome to the show, Madam MD.
Thank you very much for having me.
When Lagos Transportation Agenda returns, we shall be discussing, as I said, spotlight on bus terminals, shelters, and BRT stations as a component of the integrated transportation system that Lagos State has been developing over the years. Please stay with us. Welcome once again on Lagos Transportation Agenda. As I said in my introduction, I have with me the MD CEO of LAMATA, Engineer Mrs. Akinajo. Welcome again to the show. And Madam, in the last 3 years, as we're all aware, the Lagos State government under the Governor Sanwo-Olu administration has commissioned a number of transport projects, chief among them bus terminal in places like Yaba, Oyigbo, and so on. Can you tell us the key motivations behind government's investment in this infrastructure?
Okay, so if we look at the way our transportation system works now, we have bus stops all over the place, we have people picking up, or buses picking up passengers willy-nilly all over Lagos. And majorly these cause a problem, they cause traffic because they're parking where they're not supposed to be. So the vision is to ensure that we direct transport activities in areas that have been designed specifically for that. And that's why the state has taken it upon itself to invest in these terminals. Because for us, it is a way in which we can direct transportation activities in areas that have been designed specifically for that, and to ensure that we have coordinated ways in which our passengers are picked up We have safe areas for them to actually board buses and alight from them. And in fairness, that is also part of the strategic agenda for transportation within Lagos, to have identified terminals in certain areas that will support the bus stops that we have. The terminals will be the major hubs where people can be picked up and alight from buses.
Okay, we hear a lot about BRT corridors. What exactly, I mean, the layman who hears about corridors, like the Oshodi-Abule corridor, the Lagos-Badagry Expressway corridor, what is the BRT corridors? What particular need have they met? What particular objective have they achieved?
Okay, so the vision of the BRT corridor is exactly what it says, the bus rapid transit system. And what it should do is help us move people very quickly. A BRT corridor is dedicated purely for buses. And that means that it helps the movement of passengers quickly. They will not mix in traffic. They will have free flow for the transportation needs of the people. Now, what that will do for us is ensure, first of all, we'll cut journey times. If you take Abule Oshodi, for instance, before the opening of that particular corridor, the journeys would take anything from 2 to 2.5 hours. Now we're doing that journey in about 45 minutes. And that is the vision of the BRT corridor, to ensure that we mass move people in the quickest, shortest possible. And it will ensure that the people also will be more endeared to public transportation, because they know that I can be certain that my journey will be short and will be comfortable.
So you can clearly see that perhaps there's been a move towards, like you talk of being endearing was public transportation as against using personal cars. Have you seen an upward trend in that say in the last 2 years?
So what I would say that we've seen an upward movement in is that people understand the BRT system and they will use it. A lot of people have moved in the direction of the BRT. If you take the Ikorodu corridor, for instance, I believe that the BRT really helps to develop the whole of Ikorodu, because the mere fact that people know that they can get on the BRT and just from Ikorodu and get all the way to the island makes it easy for me to live in Ikorodu and not sit in regular traffic, because I know that I can sit on a dedicated bus lane that will take me. As I bought the bus, I know that I can do that journey in a certain time. And so therefore I would say that a number of people have actually transited into the public transport using the BRT,
But do you still see a tension, if that's the word, between BRT use and the use of regular? If tension is the word.
Well, maybe tension is not the word. Maybe tension is not the word. I think what you see is that as the BRT system develops, people will continue to gain confidence. And as the confidence grows, there will be more willingness on the part of the public to depart from their cars and to move into the BRT lanes.
So what has been what's the current status of the bus reform initiative that the government, in which we were told that there'll be about 100 bus shelters at a particular timeline? What has been the current status of that?
Okay, so the bus reform initiative speaks exactly to that. We need to reform the way in which we operate our buses. The first position is to move us from the unregulated, or shall I say the informal sector to the formal sector, the unregulated to the regulated sector. And part of that puts an onus on government to provide infrastructure for it. So that infrastructure is what you just spoke about, the BRT lines, the bus terminals, and indeed the bus shelters. If I'm saying that I don't want buses to stop willy-nilly, I need to provide dedicated bus stops, and that's what the 100 bus shelter project was all about, to ensure that we have bus stops at dedicated places that buses can actually stop and people can walk to and stay there to get on their buses. A number of those have been completed all down the Lekki Ekpe Expressway. You can see them everywhere in Lagos that we have. We have We have done about 85 to 90%
Yes.
of that particular project.
All right. We will be discussing more on the issue of integrated transport arteries. As I said, our spotlight on the show today is on bus terminals, shelters, and BRT stations. Stay with us as we continue our conversation with Engineer Mrs. Abimbola Akinajo of Lamata after this time out.
Great economies are built on good transportation network. This is why Lagos State Government through Lamata has been working tirelessly to enhance the state's transport infrastructure and implement the Strategic Transport Master Plan (STMP) for Lagos and create a world-class transport network for the metropolis. The STMP would deliver 6 rail lines, 1 monorail, 14 BRT routes, 26 water transport routes, 3 cable car routes, and several road intervention to promote the integration of the transport modes. When all these projects are completed, there will be lower emission, leading to better health for all, lower road crashes, better quality of life, and faster economic growth. With the BRT already running in some corridors, jetties being upgraded, and rail line from Okokomaiko to CMS coming on board soon, life of Lagosians in the face of Lagos is changing every day. A healthier and more prosperous Lagos is in the making, and Lamata is driving it. Lamata, keeping Lagos moving.
If you're just joining, is the Lagos Transportation Agenda, and my guest today has been the MD CEO of Lamata, the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Engineer Mrs. Abimbola Akinajo. MD, outlying areas like Badagry, Ekpe, and so on, are they as well served as the areas that are more central? So what is the government's objective, plans for those areas in terms of bus terminals?
Okay, so within Lagos, we have zoned all of Lagos, just so that in carrying out the implementation, we're following the plan. Ekpe and Badagry are actually zoned as Zone 8 for us, and as we move, they also will come under the same scheme. So the scheme is statewide. Implementation is obviously in phase.
Okay, let's talk about the first and last mile bus scheme, which was launched the other day by the governor as part of the community bus service initiative. How have these services provided by these buses aided in mobility of the people? Can you say the buses are now an alternative to Okada? Because the fallout of the ban on Okada has been that, of course, there are a lot of salutary effects to that ban, but there are what are the alternatives? So can you speak to that?
Okay. So the first and last mile, just as the name explains, it's the one that should be closest, that is indeed closest to the community. It's one that enters the community, brings you out, and takes you to your nearest transportation terminal. What we have found is that it's been very effective in what it was planned and designed to do. To date, we have over circa 500 buses. We have carried over 3 million passengers. And in that sense, we would say it has been well received. And as we launch new areas, we always try and ensure that we are in those areas that, especially where the bans have been announced. So as the bans have been announced recently now, we will make sure that we extend the first and last mile services to those areas. We only included Apapa not so long ago, and Apapa is thriving and is growing. So there is a lot that we can say. In fact, I feel that it has made a very, very positive impact. You see the buses all over Lagos, And the people who are taking it, they have been very complimentary about the service. So therefore, I would say yes, it's been very, very helpful as a means of alternative to the Okadas. It's safer, and you are certain of what you are getting yourself into.
I see. Yeah. Briefly, can you just talk about the difference the cowrie card scheme has made? It's a novel thing in these parts, but I'm sure.
Okay. So the cowrie card for us is a way in which, I mean, there's so many things you would say about the cowrie card. First of all, it is a revenue protection scheme for the operators. So it ensures that the operators, their revenue is protected. So everybody that gets on a bus or on a ferry today, if you tap, that means that the operator knows that everybody that's on my bus, I know that I will receive the revenue for it.
Exactly.
That's revenue protection. There's also the fact that it helps the passengers themselves. You can load your card and know that all I need to put in my pocket is my card.
Exactly.
No one's going to come and steal my money and suddenly I'm stuck. And also it helps them in that boarding a bus becomes easy because I get to the bus terminal. If I have to top up, I top up, I tap and I get on. I'm not quarreling with my conductor asking for my change and all that. Sometimes aggravates people. There is the fact also that it is engendering integrated transportation. Now that same card you can use on the buses, you can use on BRT, you can use on regular buses, you can use on the ferries. We're actually trialing it out on downfalls as well. Just to see, because for us it's a way for them to understand that they can come under that umbrella with bus reform initiative.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk briefly about the rail system, which I know is under the purview of Lamata as well. What the current status of the two rail lines that are currently being developed by the Lagos State government, as far as the role of Lamata in that process is concerned.
Okay. So for the rails, Lamata has a responsibility to deliver it alongside their contractors. So we are the agency of government that is responsible for the implementation of the rail line. I would say that we've had tremendous support from the government, from Mr. Governor, in that the funds have been made available. So for now, the vision or the drive is that by the end of the year, all civil works should be completed. And I believe we're on track for that, both for the blue and the red. Now with regard to the blue, we did last of the T-beams just a few days ago, where the last precast beam was launched, which means that the whole bridge is now complete. And all we need to start doing is laying tracks, putting ballast, and doing all of the infrastructural things that will aid the trains to function. To that end, I will say that the plan of end of the year for the completion of the blue line is very much on track, and we are certain that by before the end of December we will be able to say all works are done, and we will begin to do testing and commissioning. So we need to test and trial out, and this is where you begin to look at the interfaces between your civil works and the operational work. From that perspective, we're expecting rolling stock to land in country by the end of October. So everything is working for the blue line to be ready for testing from the end of December. With regard to the red line, we're doing the same. The red line also will be ready by the end of December, beginning of January. So therefore, from Lamata's perspective, we're quietly confident that both rail lines will be operational first quarter of next year, just as the governor has
outlined. Wonderful. Just last time, MD, security is a hot button issue in Nigeria today, as well as, of course, safety, the regular day-to-day concerns with safety. Considering within the limit of Lamata's role, what is the assurance of guarantee, if I use that word, of safety and security of commuters, on these corridors, terminals, and so on?
Okay, so in our terminals, for instance, we have I mean, the one thing I would say is that the safety of our passengers is paramount to Lamata. It is a key factor in what we do. And to that end, in every design that we put out, we look at the infrastructure to ensure that we have considered the safety position of that infrastructure. Now, all of our terminals will have CCTV cameras in them. On our buses, we're beginning to revive or to commission CCTV cameras. We ensure now the carry card in itself is a safety measure. Because whoever taps on a bus, we can tell you when you go on the bus and when you go off the bus. That allows us to be able to track every single passenger on our buses. Our drivers also are monitored regularly, and we know when the driver, so we're bringing on an ITS system that will ensure that when a driver gets on his bus, he must tap his driver's card. That tells me that that driver is working, and I know where that bus is at any time. So that ITS system is also being rolled out that says I can track every bus, and if a bus is moving and the driver has not activated his driver's card, we will be able to identify that this driver hasn't clocked in, even though I can see that your bus is moving. So then we can do something about it. So for us, it will be an ongoing development. We will continue to look at our safety practices to ensure that we improve upon it for the betterment and the safety of our people. Recently, we launched a SHE tool that is talking about sexual harassment on our buses. On all of our buses, we have telephone numbers that are displayed that allows you to be able to call and complain if there is any untoward stuff happening to you on the buses. And the tool does not just start with when you are on the bus. The tool actually starts with implementation, with the concept, from the conceptual design of every infrastructure. So we ensure that we don't have dark areas or dark alleys around our terminals where people can hide and sort of pounce up upon passengers. Those sorts of things we think about from the design perspective. So there's a lot that we're doing. And I always say that when it comes to safety, you can't say you've done it all. You have to continue to improve.
Ongoing process. Room for improvement at all times. Well said. MD of Lamata, Engineer Mrs. Abimbola Akinajo, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you very much.
And thank you too for being with us on the show today. I hope you will join me next week at this time on this station for yet another interesting discourse on the Lagos transportation agenda. Until then, this is Austin Ian saying stay safe. God bless and bye-bye.
Great economies are built on good transportation network. This is why Lagos State Government through Lamata has been working tirelessly to enhance the state's transport infrastructure and implement the Strategic Transport Master Plan (STMP) for Lagos and create a world-class transport network for the metropolis. The STMP would deliver 6 rail lines, 1 monorail, 14 BRT routes, 26 water transport routes, 3 cable car routes, and several road interventions to promote the integration of the transport modes. When all these projects are completed, there will be lower emission, leading to better health for all, lower road crashes, better quality of life, and faster economic growth. With the BRT already running in some corridors, jetties being upgraded, and rail line from Okokomaiko to CMS coming on board soon, life of Lagosians in the face of Lagos is changing every day. A healthier and more prosperous Lagos is in the making, and Lamata is driving it. Lamata, keeping Lagos moving.